3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast, part of Full Press Radio. This is November the 8th, 2021. With you today is myself, Carl, and Stevie Nick.
We're back for another day. I thought I was ready to go, and I wasn't.
You weren't at all. So we've got, jam-packed show, because we've really got 2 weeks worth of news. But I want to just quickly, before we move on, this is a normal show, not a serious show like last week. But thank you again to Danielle for coming on. And thanks for the great feedback and just the engagement that we had over this past week with folks tuning into our episode about the whole Blackhawks disaster. So appreciate it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's going to be more Blackhawks talk this week. This team just can't stay out of the news.
And this time was their own choice, at least.
That is very true. But before we get into all of that, I went to an NHL game the last couple of weeks. I went to one game.
Like an actual game with people.
Live,
like players.
With people, and I watched the hockey happen on the ice.
Wow. Tell me about it.
This is a couple of weeks ago. The Red Wings were in town here in Toronto. So we decided to whip up a quick date night, throw on our jerseys, head down to the game. And it was a great time. It was not as busy or sold out as I thought it would be. There was a lot of empty seats around us. But it was a very good game.
Because normally those would be sold out games, would they not?
Yeah, normally. But I think it's a mixture of A, COVID, and B, the Red Wings are just not really a hot ticket right now.
Right.
The rivalry's not really there. Although the outcome of that game felt like there was a bit of a rivalry with the score going back and forth. And the interactions I had with the crowd also felt like a bit of a rivalry as well. Mostly, let me tell you this story, okay? Mostly just this one guy. I thought it was hilarious. So this guy in the row behind me, it's probably started like midway through the second period. He saw I was wearing a Dylan Larkin jersey. Hey, Larkin sucks. And I turned around and laughed and I said, yeah, he's no Mitch Marner, right? And then like out of left field, like this guy 2 rows down was like, you can have him, which I thought was hilarious. I was like, yes, sir. Welcome to the conversation.
You just got your entire section joining in.
Yeah. They're like, we don't want Marner. You can have him. So anyways, that was that. We had a good laugh. Third period rolls around. Same guy behind me taps me on the shoulder. Larkin sucks.
Oh, I like that he's going back to the same bank. It's good.
Yeah, same bank. So I was like, yeah, I know, maybe. But I mean, like, who has more goals this year? Larkin or Matthews? Like, who would you rather? Because at the time, Larkin had more goals. And he didn't really have much of an answer to that other than, oh, yeah, well, maybe you should wear an authentic jersey to the games. And I was like, I actually didn't know what to say. I turned to my wife. I was like, I think he just chirped me for my choice of like jersey brand, which I had never heard before.
Yeah, I've never heard someone like, you see all kinds of like knockoffs at games. I assume you were wearing like the normal like $200 version that you pick up. It was just like the normal. It didn't have like the threaded, the string on the chest I don't think it has the waist thing at the back. The tie down strap.
The tie down strap. I don't think it has that.
Yeah, so it's not, but it's like the replica jersey that every fan in the arena has.
Well, yeah. Why would you need to wear like an authentic game worn jersey?
I see. Yeah, I don't get that. Sorry. I got so excited about my comeback that you should have had.
Oh, let's hear it.
So what was, I guess before I do, like, what was he wearing? Because that's what I need to know.
He was wearing a Leafs jersey, but like, I couldn't tell if it was authentic or not.
See, so I would have come back, right? If it's authentic or not, I would have come back with something like, going to a Leafs game, I can't wear that because the jersey's probably going to end up on the ice.
Hey, that would have been amazing.
That would have been good. And that guy a few rows down would have chimed in.
Yeah. Seriously, like, you can have mine.
He's just giving everything away.
Yeah. But it was all in good fun. And at the end of the game, as we were all filing out, we shook hands and he said, "Good game." And I said, "Good game."
This is what I always find. I appreciate that guy a few rows down who just wanted a friend way more than that guy who like, hey, it is the least original thing for you to just like tell me my team sucks.
Over and over again. It's the same chirp every time.
Exactly. Give me something to work with here. Like I will gladly come back at you or just confirm what you're saying if it's true. If you're bringing straight facts like you did, like, yeah, that's fine. But
so, anyways, it was a good time. It was nice to get back into the arena.
Yeah, I haven't made plans to, but I think I'm so conditioned lately to be like, you cannot attend things that it hasn't even crossed my mind that I can go and get a ticket to the hockey games that are happening in town.
You have to like make a conscious effort to think about it and remember and then go. Yeah. It's not as easy as it once was.
No, I guess you still can, right? Like just hop on your local, like StubHub or whatever and pick up tickets. That's still a thing.
It's totally still a thing. I mean, for me, like from the mental perspective, it's not like my default now when I think, what am I going to do tonight or this weekend is like, okay, well, I got this lined up on Netflix. There's these games on TV, be on the couch at this time. My default isn't I can go out and do something anymore.
No, I was at the grocery store on Sunday. My Sunday tradition, the way that it works is I always make sure that, especially for the last like year and a half, I go home on Sunday or I get up on Sunday. I like putz around, do a little bit of work and then go to the grocery store at about 10 o'clock with enough time to get back by about 10:40 for the inactives for fantasy football. And then I set my lineups and watch football. And this weekend there was F1, there was a final NASCAR race there. It was a jam-packed Sunday on the television. And so I ran into someone at the grocery store and same thing. I was just like, someone from work and she's like, "Oh, hey, like, how's it going?" We chatted and like, I hadn't showered. I was a mess. Like I was not in the state to talk to people. And I didn't even like think through later. I was like, I probably should have like said a little bit more. Like I think I said about 4 words. I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And then she says, and I was like, "Thanks." Not even bye. So I get that, right? You're not in the mode.
The Sunday routine.
No, that's what I get for not wearing headphones to the grocery store like I usually do, though.
But that's where we're all at after the last, couple of years. We're all just glued to our couches. And Carl, this week there'll be a couple people glued to their couches based on news we got this week.
Who?
And well, I want you to say the first one that comes to your mind. And that's the one we'll talk about first.
Well, the first one that I guess they're glued to the couch. When you started talking about it, the first person I thought of was Mr. Eichel.
That was the first one in my head too.
His couch is in a new location.
Yeah.
So
he moved his couch. Hopefully. Yeah. Maybe he just bought the same couch, but in Vegas.
So he didn't even move it. He was like, "Just give me another one of those." I guess when you're making $10 million a year, you can just buy a second couch. That seems like a thing that was. I think many people have multiple couches in their normal homes without making $10 million.
Yeah, I think so. Although I feel like our normal couches in our normal homes probably cost less than Jack Eichel's couches in his homes.
I don't know. I went to the Brick and got a real. He also probably went to the Brick.
Do you think? Okay. Side question. These young NHL players on their big contracts, when they buy places, they're 23, 24, 25 years old. Do you think they go out and furnish their own places? Or do you think they just pay someone to be like, "Please make my place look good"?
I think they probably pay someone to do it.
I probably would at that age if I had that income.
Would I even pay someone to make it look good? I mean, look, we all saw the inside of Connor McDavid's house. He paid someone to make it look like a fun house. So that's a choice. But yeah, I think they definitely do.
Okay,
if you're 20 years old.
Carl, let's get to the news, okay?
All right, Jack Eichel finally traded to the Vegas Golden Knights.
I know we're all sick of talking about it, but let's just get it out of the way. Rip the Band-Aid off. This is a very exciting trade that went down this week.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Big trade.
Big trade. And it we saw it kind of coming back up into the rumor mill, but I was so conditioned to be like, the Jack Eichel trade is soon. And like everyone panics and then nothing happens, that I honestly couldn't have cared less about these rumors. Even when we started getting some of those rumors of like actual pieces, right? Like Calgary's rumored trade that was coming back that Kevin Weeks reported. It was like, like interesting, but I doubt anything comes of it.
Well, I feel like when you see reports like that and a package like that, it's almost like a no-brainer that they should have taken it. That in my head anyways, I'm like, it's not real.
Right. Because that Calgary trade was a better return than what Vegas gave them.
100%.
Yeah. Because it was what? It was Matthew Tkachuk, a first and a second?
No, I think it was like a first round pick who's a current prospect, and then another first round pick for next year, and then a couple other prospects.
Right. Yeah. Here it is. The Flames' rumored offer was Tkachuk, an upcoming first round pick, a former first round pick, and 2 prospects.
Right.
So,
which is a great deal for Jack Eichel.
Would have been great. Absolutely. I mean,
instead, what the Sabres did get was Alex Tuch, Peyton Krebs, and a first round pick.
Correct.
Oh, I did that without any reminders or stimulus in front of me.
So it's and a second.
And a second rounder as well.
Yeah. So a first, a second, and somehow Vegas is also getting a third. So it was Eichel and a third for Tuch, Krebs, a first, a second.
That's random. And that first round pick is lottery protected as well.
Top 10 protected. So yeah.
Top 10 protected. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a fine enough deal. It kind of gets what the Sabres needed, right? It gets them a rostered player in Tuch, who's also out right now. It gets them Krebs, who at this point feels like a failed prospect. They get another project in Krebs. I had high hopes for him going to Vegas.
He's still young. He's not a write-off yet. Like, didn't he just have a very strong season in junior last year, 2 years ago?
2 years ago. Now he's 20 years old. Hasn't shown up in the league yet. Like, he's
still young. He's not a write-off. Look, he's obviously no Jack Eichel. Okay, like he's not in that upper echelon of player. Like he's never going to be in the conversation of the Eichels, Matthews, McDavids.
Right.
I don't even know if Eichel's in that top echelon, but
I think probably
he's definitely not that high up the depth chart.
But they get a prospect. They get some future picks. They get like, I think that trade got the pieces that they needed.
Yeah.
Could they have gotten something better than? I mean, if that Flames offer was an actual thing and they didn't take it, I'm not sure what they're doing. But
yes, agreed. But the Buffalo piece, funnily enough, is the most boring part of this trade. Like, let's talk about Vegas.
Well, let's talk. Yeah, a first line who are currently. I mean, I assume that this is the line that they're going to roll out. A first line that are currently all injured and all out of the lineup, but a first line of Jack Eichel with Max Pacioretty on one wing and Mark Stone on the other. Come on now.
It's insane. And right now, this team has $27 million on the injured reserve.
And that's the biggest issue with this whole trade happening.
Is it an issue? Is it an issue? Is it going to be an issue for them this year?
I think, I mean, it's for sure going to be a future issue. I don't know how. Okay, so let's get into it first. So Eichel is getting the surgery. Okay, the back surgery that he wanted is happening.
As far as I know, imminently.
Right. I believe it either was this past Friday or this coming Friday.
Okay.
So that's happening. It looks like 8 weeks is the possible return for him, which is kind of
does not seem long enough.
Invasive back surgery back in 8 weeks, but very likely that this is something that could be back for the Olympics, right? And I know for him, that's a thing that he wants to be able to do. So back around the Olympic break. And so that's $10 million for him, 9.5 for Stone, 7 for Pacioretty. Current cap space that they have none. Like they have to make space for these guys to come back. And so looking out at the options, at least 2 of them have to stay out through the entire regular season. And I'm not sure how they can pull that off if they're actually healthy.
Well, if they are, I mean, I don't really know the extent of these injuries. But when I saw this trade go through, I thought Vegas is going to pull a Tampa this year. They're going to find a way.
Like so hard, right? Definitely for this year, there's no way that like mid-season they can find a way to just like have these guys gone, right?
There's no way. They would have to get rid of like Carlson and Marchessault, or one of Carlson and Marchessault and one of Martinez and Theodore.
Here's the question that just crossed my mind about this. So let's say that the NHL determines that, you know, they finally decided to throw the book at a team for this, right? Like, in what way can you actually force a team to make a move? Like, at what level of move can you force them to? Because you can't just cut a guy and gain cap space, right? That's going to have a long-term ramification. And that buyout window is closed. You can't just force a team to trade someone, right? That seems like that'll end up terribly. Like if the NHL were to actually try to enforce this, it's unenforceable, which is why Tampa can get away with it.
But that's true for every team at the start of this. You know, teams go over the cap in the offseason all the time. And they say we just have to be compliant by the state. Like what? Yes. There must be something in the rule, but like there must be consequences written out about what's going to happen if you break the rules.
Have you seen the kind of punishments the NHL hands out? I'm fairly certain that there's not.
Then what's the point of having a hard cap?
I think the maximum fine is probably that $5,000 that they hand over slashes. I think that's probably it.
So brutal.
So what, we're thinking like a fine and a loss of a pick. Like that's if you win a Stanley Cup, and you get even that $3 million and a first round pick, like the Devils had with Kovalchuk back in the day, that's worth a Stanley Cup.
I don't think the league has an issue with this. I don't think any team in the league hasn't. Maybe some teams have issues with it, but the majority of them don't, because everybody watched Tampa do it last year and the rules didn't change.
Exactly. And it wasn't even brought up. Like there was no discussion about changing it.
And that wasn't just some like, you know, quiet thing that happened in the dark. Like it was widely reported on. It was out there in the media. People were talking about it.
Yeah, we knew, right? It was
everybody knew.
Blatantly obvious what was happening.
Yeah. So if that didn't prompt this specific change in the rule book, they don't care.
No. So, okay.
But something's going to have to change for next year.
I don't know if it does. I think this is a thing that gets brought up not until the next time the CBA gets reopened.
Oh, yeah, probably. I meant for Vegas's roster. Something's going to have to change for
Vegas,
next year.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't have... Look, we hear all the time that the Maple Leafs have an issue with their salary cap structure, right? Well, the salary cap structure of the Knights right now is $26.5 million for 3 players. That's a big chunk, right? Plus, you know, Pietrangelo is making 8.8 plus Carlson 5.9. So I would expect that, because Vegas is very good at moving pieces out, right? Like they are not afraid to move some of these high price pieces out to keep that core. I would expect Pacioretty's the one gone.
You think so?
I think so. I mean, he's frequently hurt, right? Mm-hmm. He's only got 1 year left, so it's a short-term consequence.
And he's not the captain.
Right, exactly. You're not moving Stone. he's so impactful in so many ways, right? Offense, defense, special teams. You can't move him. And you just traded for Jack Eichel.
I'm just so curious to know what's happening behind the scenes and on these medical reports right now. Because surely it's higher stakes for the players this year if they want to play in the Olympics. Maybe,
right.
Maybe someone like Max Pacioretty's like, I see the Canadian team roster. I'm not going to make that team.
But Mark
I'm not
Stone
going to
sure
rush
would.
my way out of it. But Mark Stone for sure would.
Yeah.
So, does Pacioretty stay on the LTIR for the year? I don't know. Again, I don't know what his injury is or how bad it is.
I also want you to know that Max Pacioretty is American.
Oh, then he probably has a chance of making that team.
Then it changes a little bit.
You're right. He is. You know why I always thought he was Canadian? Because he was the captain of the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah. And you assume that player has to speak French.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which he for sure doesn't.
No. And his name's Max. Like that seems like Maxime Pacioretty, but his actual name, I mean, no chance that you would ever guess. Maximilian Colenda Pacioretty.
Pacioretty doesn't even sound like an American name.
I mean, I'm sure it's from wherever his family history is from. That's an episode.
Sounds like
that's a
Quebec.
I mean, it does a little bit sound like that name. I don't know where his Wikipedia page is not telling. Oh, there you go. There's all kinds of fun facts on here, but his paternal grandmother is from Montreal, and then
so it's got a little bit.
So it is French. And his mom is Mexican. So that's you meet in the middle, and you're born in Connecticut.
We're learning a lot of interesting things about Max Pacioretty today. I had no idea.
I mean, you thought he was Canadian, so yeah, that's
that was the first thing I learned.
All right. With this trade, one last thing that I got a question for you about it. With this trade, beginning of the year, you did not pick Vegas to win the Stanley Cup. I do not believe.
No.
Does that change? Does this trade change your opinion on that?
I still, yeah, I think it does.
They're your favorite now?
Did you hear me go back and forth in my head there?
I could literally hear the gears grinding.
I just feel like here's the conversation that just happened in my head. I don't think they're the favorite because Jack Eichel, look what he did in Buffalo. But then I thought, but hold on, he was playing with Buffalo and that roster. Mm-hmm. Put him on a line with Mark Stone, and he will be the player we all thought he was going to be. Right. And this is legitimately the one piece that Vegas was missing on their roster.
A strong
top
center.
Line center.
Yeah.
They went and got him.
I almost said shutdown center, which he is for sure not.
No, he's not that.
No, I agree. And I think so. The first site I looked at did not give me Stanley Cup odds. Those were not open right now. But they have Vegas as the 6th favorite to win the President's Trophy. Any guesses on who the number 1 favorite to win the President's Trophy right now is?
Colorado?
Florida Panthers.
Yeah, Florida and then Carolina.
And then Colorado second.
Colorado second.
Yeah, Colorado second.
And where's Carolina on there?
Now you're asking questions that I've turned off, gone to a different page.
Okay, it's fine. It's fine. It doesn't matter.
Where's Carolina? In order: Florida, Colorado, Edmonton, Carolina's 4th, Toronto, then Tampa, and then Boston and Vegas are tied for 7th.
Boston
and Vegas are tied for 7th. Yes.
Well, I mean, if these players are going to be on the LTIR all season, then sure, that makes sense.
I think that's probably why. Absolutely. All right. Who's the other player who's on a couch or person on a couch?
I was going to go Jeremy Colleton next. The head coach, former head coach of the Chicago Blackhawks. He was relieved of his duties this week.
Which is always my favorite way to put that. Someone being relieved of their duties. Because I am very mature. Yeah, Colleton. I mean, he was at the time the youngest coach in the NHL, correct? I believe that was the case.
He was. He's not. Well, obviously, he's not anymore.
He is the youngest former coach who coached this year.
I think Sheldon Keefe is now the youngest coach.
Really? That's
I think
surprising.
So. I know he doesn't look very young, but I think he is.
I would probably go because we got what? Jared Bednar's not that old. We've got the name that's escaping me in Anaheim, former Oilers coach.
Yeah, but that guy, like, he was young the first time. He can't just be the young guy forever. We got to find his name now. I can't remember his name.
It's a race, and can I remember it faster than you can Google it? All of our Anaheim Ducks listeners right now are losing their mind. They're like, "You've got to be kidding me!"
I got it.
I don't.
It's because you kept talking that whole time. Dallas Eakins.
Dallas Eakins. That's right. I'm not just going to give dead air. This kept talking to make a good podcast.
Carl, what have we done? Like 320 episodes?
No, 300, and I think this is 355.
355 episodes.
Come at us, Jamie Ben.
Yeah, you've earned a little bit of dead air,
especially in our final season.
Yeah.
Hey Nick, look that up. I'm gonna go get a snack. We'll be back later.
Just phoning it in.
And this isn't even when we do our commercial break. It's not. We're not even gonna edit that out. It's just. I think my wife went and got some cake while I was recording.
Wow.
So, yeah. Hopefully it's chocolate.
All right, Jeremy Colleton.
Yeah. I mean, with everything that's happened in Chicago, was this a distraction from the other news that's happening for them to be like, look at this shiny thing that we're doing over here. Please ignore the rest of it. Or was this like an actual attempt to make the team better?
I mean, I think both. I think anything the Blackhawks do right now could be used as a distraction to everything else that's going on. But this team was drowning pretty quickly.
Especially after the high hopes that we had for them at the start of the year, right? For their on ice hopes, right? Like they brought in Marc-Andre Fleury. They, brought in Seth Jones and got markedly worse with those additions.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, they didn't win for the first 9 games of their season, I think.
Yeah.
10 games, maybe. There's some OT losses in there. Yeah. So with Colleton behind the bench this year, they only won 1 game.
Out of?
12, I believe.
Yeah. Which when you're rivaling the almost blatantly tanking Arizona Coyotes for wins, when you were supposed to take a step forward, you can't keep your job.
It's not good. Playing. And like, look, I'm sure this guy had a lot working against him this year. Like Marc-Andre Fleury has not been the Marc-Andre Fleury they need him to be. Seth Jones, sure, he's been getting a lot of points, but he's not doing much at the other end of the ice.
Yeah, the defensive side of his game, which, I mean, he is a defenseman.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's the whole lawsuit, which, I'm sure was a huge distraction for his team, especially considering some of the players were part of the team when, what happened to Kyle Beach happened. So, I'm sure all of that played into it, but this guy's coached this was his 4th year behind the bench, and that team's points percentage has gone down almost every single year.
Yeah. And there was excuses and reasons, right? There was excuses and reasons this whole time, but you're right. It needed to improve. It didn't under him. And what I find interesting was, the naming of just an interim coach, right? And now every coach that gets fired, it's like, oh, John Tortorella is going in there, right?
Yeah.
Right? That's the default reaction. But I was a little bit surprised that they didn't have someone else lined up, that they're like, hey, we're just going to promote from within. Within is not working, right? Within is the last place that you should trust as an organization. So maybe look outside, bring in somebody new to try to bring some fresh life to what's happening.
Yeah, but I will also say, so their new interim GM, so I don't know who that person is. I don't know that person's name, would not recognize him. Their new interim coach, same thing. Don't know who that person is. Don't recognize. Like, I kind of wonder if with everything that's going on, they're trying not to be too flashy and attract too much attention right now, which bringing in someone like Torts would do. And it's something that you'd expect a franchise like that to do. Absolutely,
right? They've got the money, and you can throw money at a coach as much as you want, right?
Yeah, for sure. But I kind of wonder if they're like, look, let's just, it's early, but let's take the L on the season and just stay out of the spotlight as much as possible.
Yeah, I could see that being the reason. Absolutely. All right. Let's take a break here. We'll be back on the other side looking at some more of the news that's happened in the NHL this week. 3, 2, 1.
All right, let's talk about some contracts. New contracts handed out. Random time of year to be giving out contracts, but
like 2 big deals, more giant deals for defensemen too, which is a real trend we're seeing in the league this year.
Yeah. So well, let's just get into it because there's some interesting. It's interesting because of all the defensemen that got signed this year. So number 1, I believe this is the order they got signed. Morgan Rielly.
Morgan Rielly was signed first. You are correct.
$7.5 million AAV
for 8 years.
8 years.
8
max.
Years. So he's max length. Puts him at what? He'll be 36 when this contract ends.
It's a long contract.
It's a long contract. And I don't feel like, so on the open market, what kind of a deal do you think Morgan Rielly would get?
He probably would have gotten a little more, maybe.
I am very curious what he would get because he's been with this Leafs team for his entire career and has been essentially the number 1 defenseman for this entire time, right?
Yep.
But within that, like, he hasn't really been your stereotypical, like, prolific number 1 defenseman that we're used to seeing. And so I would be very skeptical of my team going out and spending even 7 years, $8 million on Morgan Rielly. I would not be thrilled about that idea.
I don't know. I think he probably landed exactly where he would have in the open market, which really sucks for the Leafs.
But because they need as many hometown discounts as they can.
Yeah. They should have got, like, I don't know. What I heard from Maple Leafs fans when this deal was signed was that they liked it. They thought it was a good number based on what other top defensemen were going for this year. Seth Jones, Zach Werenski, whatever. They liked the number.
Yeah. If he was as good as Seth Jones and Zach Werenski, then he would have gotten paid like them. He's a worse version of those players. Now, granted, he's not a worse version of like 2021 Seth Jones, but he's a worse version of those players. Like, there's a reason that he didn't get Zach Werenski money because he's not as good. Like, you didn't get a deal. You paid what you pay for a second tier defenseman.
Yeah, and they're going to be paying him for a long time. The term is the thing I hate on this deal.
Which the term is, I don't love the term, but when you look at what everyone else's term on this team is, right? Because it, like, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, none of them got max length deals, right? So they do have that flexibility. So I don't hate the term because, like, no one on this team other than him has a deal that's more than 4 years from now. So the term, there's a lot of flexibility with the term, right? When you get to your 36-year-old Morgan Rielly, you've got some flexibility there.
He's got a full no move clause too for the entirety of it.
I mean, the contract, 36-year-old, $7.5 million Morgan Rielly is a no move clause. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, I don't know. You make very good points. I personally didn't love the deal. I think they could have shaved $1 million off, but not $1 million off the total deal, $1 million off per year.
I think so. I think if you had have done it like 7.5 for 4 or 5 years, I would have thought that was a good deal.
Yeah, agreed.
But
agreed.
Apparently that's what they thought was worthwhile. And it also, I mean, I get, right? Like there's not a lot of pieces on the free agent market. The Leafs don't really have much prospect wise in the pipeline, right? All of their young, like really good defensive prospects aren't really panning out, right? You think of like Sandin and Liljegren and all those pieces that they got excited about. They're kind of just fringe NHLers at this point.
Yeah. I mean, it's like they're still young, but yeah, none of them are panning out to be a Morgan Rielly. That's for sure. And I think from Riley's perspective too, like look around, look at the deals his teammates are setting themselves up with. You know, if they see him as part of that core, then he's probably saying, well, then pay me like part of the core. Obviously they can't do another $11 million contract, but, and then, the other thing is the history, which you mentioned, like he was in that 4-1 game.
Yeah.
He's been around for a long time. He's been very dedicated to the team.
He's the only holdout from the previous eras, right?
Yeah.
When all these guys were drafted, he was there. So an interesting deal, but contrast it with the deal handed out like a mere 2 days later, November 1st, Rielly signed his. October 29th. So yeah, 2 days later, Adam Fox, fresh off a Norris Trophy, signs a 7-year deal with a cap hit of $9.5 million.
This one caught me completely off guard. I was not expecting this one.
Yeah, like it needed to happen, right? His rookie deal was ending. He needed a deal, but was not expecting it to come now.
No, it came very fast. So his cap hit now goes from this year $925,000 to $9.5 million.
Yeah.
Huge.
Big deal. But I think, this is one that's on par, right? Because he's maintained his performance this year. I'm not saying he's going to be a Norris winner, but he's a top tier defenseman.
He's good.
You look at, the other players, because Cale Makar got his deal just this last offseason, right? His was 6 years, $9 million. This is 7 years, 9.5. Like it's in that same ballpark, right? It's in that same area. And I think this is what you have to pay. There is no longer a deal for young players coming out, right? The bridge deal is not much of a thing anymore. You're paying full market value, and $9.5 million is what you're going to have to pay for a top D.
Especially when they're winning trophies. When your team misses the playoffs.
Right.
Like he's obviously a very important player to them. This deal takes him to 30. That's not awful. Like it's a good contract. Plus this guy, I've managed to watch 2 parts of games that he was playing this week. One was against Calgary on Saturday. I don't know if you saw this. He scored a highlight reel goal. Beautiful goal. And it was called back because of the stupid offside challenge. Inches.
His team just shouldn't have gone offside.
Yeah. It was an amazing goal. And he just scored another one tonight against Florida that looked the same way.
Yeah. I mean, he's a great player. Definitely worth it. And this is what you have to pay to keep this guy around. After him, shockingly, you think back to his time, like, remember he was drafted by the Flames?
Yeah.
And then bounced around.
He's traded to Carolina, I think.
Went to Carolina in the Dougie Hamilton deal, right?
Yeah.
And was just kind of like a tack on piece in that deal, and then was traded to the Rangers, I want to say for a 3rd round pick. And now making bank. So,
but was he not always pretty clear that he wanted to play for New York?
Yes. Yeah.
So it was just like, figure out a way to get me there, because that's where I'm going to go.
Yeah. And
anyways,
you see this fairly often, right? These college players that come in a little bit later.
Yeah.
And try to kind of maneuver their way to an organization, right? And we saw this with Jimmy Vesey somewhat recently. We've seen it with Will Butcher, and it usually is a lot of hype for not a lot of performance.
Yeah.
Right. Like who's talking about Will Butcher and Jimmy VC? Not very many people anymore.
Yeah.
And so the fact that Adam Fox has actually panned out and become a top NHLer is impressive for him.
Pretty exciting.
Absolutely. All right. So contracts done. Let's talk about someone that's no longer. Is he on a couch?
I think he's on a bus.
On a bus. So not on a couch.
But the airplane mode of travel is not available right now.
No, I would say not. I would say, would you call it a Chesterfield? Is he on one of those?
He might be on a Chesterfield.
Nonetheless, I hope we're talking about the same player. I'm now confused, but I'm talking about Cole Caulfield.
Yeah, I got that, Carl.
I'm glad. Cole Caulfield sent down to the AHL by the Montreal Canadiens, now down in Laval, playing with the farm team. Do you think that's the right call for Caulfield after what he was able to do last season?
No, not for Caulfield. I mean, I think the Canadiens had to do something. But like, what's the rationale in a situation like this? Okay, he's not clicking right now. Let's get him down to the minors where he'll dominate, build up his confidence, and we'll call him back up in 6 to 8 weeks.
I guess, yeah.
To me, it just feels like the Habs throwing in the towel.
That's kind of, I mean, they're definitely throwing in the towel, right? They're clearly stating that this is not the year for them. They're not winning the championship. They're not making it back to the playoffs, right? But they need to do something.
Yeah. This guy was supposed to be a favorite for the Calder Trophy.
And now, I mean, do we start just writing Moritz Seider in already?
I think we can start dropping the dark from the dark horse designation. He could just be one of the horses.
I mean, I would say so. Do they put the name of the team? Because I mean, it's either going to be Lucas Raymond or Seider at this point. So we might as well just write it. We'll write in Red Wings and leave the name empty. How does that sound?
This sounds wonderful.
So here's my issue with this, right? You want him to go down and play well. Laval, the team he went to, have now, I mean, he's played 2 games with them. They're in the midst of a 4-game losing streak. They're 4-5-1 on the season. They're not even sending him to a winning organization. They're sending him down to another team that loses and has not, I mean, I know it's a very small sample size, but it's not even a team that has a lot to be excited about. So you're just sending him down to another team with worse competition for him, worse people to push him. And I think that this is significantly, depending on how long they keep him down for, significantly going to stifle his development.
You think he gets traded?
No chance that they can lose Kotkaniemi to a offer sheet and trade Cole Caulfield. You're resetting an already confusing rebuild.
Confusing rebuild. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Because is it a rebuild? Is it not? I don't know what's happening.
Oh God, who knows? Who knows anymore with this team? They're bad.
They're very bad.
They're either like scoring 5 goals a game or being completely shut out.
And I will tell you this: anytime that I go all in on the Habs being bad is the night that they score like 5 goals.
I know.
And then when I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe they'll do something now is when they do nothing. So
yeah, I've experienced that as well. I don't like it.
No. So I've stopped having any thoughts on the Montreal Canadiens.
You know, side note, I've put all my hockey betting on pause because of an incident last week where I had money line bets on 3 games. It was Toronto, Tampa, and I took Tampa. Mm-hmm. It was Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and I took Philadelphia. And it was Washington, Florida, and I took Washington.
And you lost all 3.
All 3 games, the teams that I wanted to win were winning, and the game got tied up at the end of the game, and they all lost in overtime.
That's a rough go.
I'm still devastated. I haven't been able to place another bet.
I mean, that's a good way to step out. Was that when you were doing those, were those like individual bets or a parlay?
Individual.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would have been even more crushing if it was a parlay. That would have been some good money.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I'm sorry.
It's on pause right now.
That's fair. Nonetheless, the Montreal Canadiens, I don't get why they're doing this. I don't think that this is going to help him. I also don't think, I mean, you mentioned the trade. Do you think that he's like, where do you think he ends up? Do you think he gets traded?
Not really. I mean, I don't think the Habs would want to trade him. Like, to me, the question is, how long does this being sent down last for? And does it result in him asking to be traded?
I don't think that he has much sway in the will you trade me scenario.
No, not yet.
But what I do think is interesting, I mean, so he is, last year he first came up, right? So he's on I believe this is his second year of the deal. So he's got one more after the fact, right? And Montreal has already shown that players aren't taking too kindly to the way that they're being handled, right? Kotkaniemi benched during the playoffs, leaves as soon as he can. Is Cole Caulfield going to follow the same suit? Because then this becomes a big issue, right? If you can't even keep players past their rookie deals, then you start having to overpay for them. Then you're starting to have to, trade them ahead of time. You've got to really fix this organization. If this is how you're treating guys and they're getting upset about it, because he can't be happy about this.
No, he can't be. And unless the Habs decide to change how they're doing business with their players. And you got to wonder, if the season keeps going the way that it's going, how much patience do they have with Dominique Ducharme? How much more patience can they have with Marc Bergevin?
Yeah, I would not be surprised to see either of them gone. I mean, Ducharme a little longer leash because he literally took them to the Stanley Cup Finals last year. But Marc Bergevin, same thing with Bergevin, but like they can't keep this going.
Bergevin every year thinks that they're a contender.
That's true.
And they ended up being last year, but like, come on, let's be honest here. They weren't really a contender. They got a little lucky. They hit a hot streak in the playoffs.
They did. Absolutely. All right. Any last thoughts on this? Because I've got a little game I want us to play.
No, let's play games.
All right. We're gonna play a little over under. I've got some team stats. I've got some player stats. I wanna just touch on some other things so that we can do some quick hits around the league. Okay. Edmonton Oilers are currently 9-1 on the season.
Yeah.
Over or under 55 wins for this team?
I'm gonna say over.
60?
Over.
Really?
Wait. What's the record? 62?
60.
Tampa just hit it a couple years ago.
Yeah. It was like 100. I thought it was 122 points, right?
Oh, was it points?
I think that's what they set the record for.
Okay. I want to say Edmonton's going to win 62 games this year.
62 games. So that means that the rest of the year, so they've got 72 games left. They would have to win. You said 62?
Yeah.
So they would have to win 53 out of the next 72 games.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty high pace. But
yeah, it is. But they also have Connor McDavid scoring like godlike goals.
Connor McDavid is on another level right now.
Unbelievable.
All right. On the flip side, let's stick in that division. Okay. I mean, the Pacific Division is no longer as bad as we thought it was so far this year. I mean, it's been we've got a decent sample size, right? 10 plus games for every team in the league.
Yep.
Seattle, they currently have 4 wins in 12 games. Over under 30.
Over.
Apparently I set my lines a little too low for Nick.
Do you disagree?
I think it feels pretty close to me that it's going to be right around 30.
It does feel pretty close to that. They kind of stink though, hey?
That team's not they're not even fun to watch. That's the problem. Like I want to be like, ooh, Seattle games. And then I turn it on and I'm like, oh,
yeah,
I'm going to go play video games or something else.
tough ones to get through.
Yeah. All right. Let's head over then to the East. Let's set the same line. You said 62 games for the Edmonton Oilers. The Florida Panthers have not lost in regulation yet. Over under 65 wins for the Florida Panthers.
65 wins is 130 points.
Yeah.
Under.
So the record all time is 62 wins.
Yeah.
Set by the 96 Red Wings.
Man, I set a very high bar for the Oilers to hit.
So you said that the Oilers are going to be as good as the 95-96 Red Wings. Interesting.
Hey, the listeners come for hot takes, Carl.
All right. I guess let's take another look then. Carolina, another team that's doing very well. They've lost in regulation, much like the Oilers have. Only one, though.
Florida's are going to lose in regulation tonight, by the way.
They're currently losing to the Rangers, are they not?
Like 4-0.
Yeah. All right.
Carolina
then. Over under 55 wins.
Under.
Yeah, I feel like we can't have I know that they're all in a different division, but it feels like we can't have 3 teams in a season all with 60 wins. That seems unlikely.
Yeah, especially not a team with Freddie Anderson. He's been great. Like, he's been good.
I mean, he's been good enough.
But Freddie Anderson isn't like that all the time.
The Hurricanes, of the 3 teams we just talked about, the Hurricanes have been the most... If there's an underwhelming 9-1 team, it's the Hurricanes.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
They've had some pretty easy schedules so far. All right.
Agree with that.
Let's take a look then at some points. Let's look at some players. Okay. So Connor McDavid, you mentioned all the goals that he scores. He's currently sitting at 8 goals on the year. Over under 60.
I think it's going to be right around there. It's just, is it going to be 58 or 62? Over. Wow. So like a goal per win for McDavid. Yeah.
So he's currently on pace.
Which makes sense. I feel better about my 62 wins now.
Like, hey, they have to score he has to score for them to win. So
yeah,
make that happen. Yeah. I feel like that's a reasonable thing. All right. Let's then stick to the Oilers because Leon Draisaitl is right with him. He's actually tied with Ovechkin in the league with goals with 10. Over under 40 goals for Leon Draisaitl. So 30 more the rest of the way.
How many games has he played so far?
10. He's at a goal a game pace.
It's not that far-fetched for him. I'm going to say over. I'm giving everyone the benefit of the doubt today.
Okay. Now we've got to get a little more aggressive then. Let's turn then to Lucas Raymond.
Oh boy. See this now emotion's going to come into play.
Which is, I mean, look, I know that you're going to go over, and I now know that I need to start setting much higher lines for these because you're picking the over on everything that I'm saying.
I know.
Some of these I don't fully agree with. So let's look. Lucas Raymond currently has 6 goals. He is a NHL rookie. Let's go 35.
Under.
30.
Under.
Really? 25.
I think he'll land right around there. 22 to 27.
My original line I was going to say was 30. So I'm glad that so what you say emotions getting into that. So are you like just hedging your bets and trying not to get too optimistic? Is that what's happening here?
Yeah. I also you see it every year. Some of these rookies come out the gate flying. They almost catch the rest of the league by surprise. And then teams start to figure out how they play, how the teams are using them, and they start to get shut down a little bit.
And then sometimes you have guys like Kaprizov who just pop off the entire year and are really great players.
Yes. who is also far more experienced than a 19-year-old coming into the league.
True, right? He did not play pro hockey ahead of time. So
yeah,
that is definitely the case. All right. Jacob Markstrom this week had shutouts in the last couple of weeks, had shutouts in 3 out of 4 games. He currently has 4 shutouts on the season for the Calgary Flames, who, I mean, they are a team that I think, I did not give them credit that they would be this good. Obviously, he has held them in a lot of games. But over under 7 shutouts for Jacob Markstrom.
He's at 4 already?
He is at 4.
Over. He can post another 4 this year.
Over under 10 shutouts.
Under.
Okay. So what you're saying is we're not getting close to the record. Do you have any guess on what the record for shutouts in an NHL season is?
I'm going to guess something is probably going to be way higher than what the record actually is. So now let me readjust my guess and say 12.
It is 15.
Dang.
Tony Esposito had 15 shutouts in one season.
That feels low.
For a shutout in a season, that feels incredibly high.
1-5?
1-5.
Like what would a starting goalie on average play per year? Like 40, 50 games?
I would think back to then. I would say, because this was in 1970.
Seasons were probably shorter back then.
Seasons were shorter, but also I feel like starting goalies got ridden a lot harder. So I would say probably 60 games.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's crazy. 15. I was 15. First going to say like 20 something, and then I pulled myself back.
Yeah, it's a reasonable thing because it was. Let's see. What did the Blackhawks themselves that season had 45 wins, so he got shutouts in a third of all of their wins.
Wow,
that's impressive. All right. Yeah. Let's take a look. I got distracted and ended up on the wrong page. Let's take a look at just some points. Okay. Let's do some players that are struggling. Where's that list? All right. We did this a couple weeks ago with Mitch Marner. And I know that guy at the Leafs game was gonna just probably take the under on this total. He's currently sitting at 3 goals, over under 22 goals for Mitch Marner.
Under
20?
Under, yeah.
Wow.
We're doing hot takes this week.
All right. I can get behind this. I'm not sure I fully agree, but I can see where we're at. Okay.
I feel like I threw all my eggs in the basket on the 62 wins, so nothing's going to be that.
You literally said that we're having an NHL. Bold. Yeah, that an NHL record is being tied this year. All right. This one's hitting a little close to home for me.
Okay.
Nathan MacKinnon has 1 goal so far this year.
Ooh.
Last year, he had 20 in a lockout or in the COVID shortened season, 35 and 40 the year before, over under 30 goals for Nathan MacKinnon.
I'm going to say under.
All right. Thanks for tuning in this week. We'll see. I hate that you're probably right.
But the Avs are one of those teams where there's maybe 3 or 4 teams in the league right now that I have this attitude with. It doesn't matter. Just get to the playoffs and then perform.
And that's my issue right now, is because they're losing to the Columbus Blue Jackets multiple times this season.
Yeah.
Like you have to get to make that mentality work. You have to do the get to the playoffs part. And right now they're not. Yeah. They're not there.
They'll get there, Carl. Don't worry.
Maybe, but also maybe not. All right. Well, now I shouldn't have brought that up because now I'm just sad. All right, let us move on because we've got something important to do here, Nick. we have to hand out a prize.
Yeah.
Prizes are happening. We got our first high sticking prize of the season to hand out. Let me just redo some math here. So that's gonna be okay. All right, this is a random draw. So we said every game, right? We play high sticking. We pick our Pavel Bure must-watch games. We're gonna do that shortly.
Yep.
We're gonna take the winner up until Christmas. Okay, at Christmas time, we're gonna be handing out a Christmas gift of not an authentic jersey, so you're going to get chirped if you go to a Leafs game. Okay, that's going to happen. But you're also not cheering for the Leafs, so that's probably for the best. So we're going to be handing a jersey to the leader of the point standings, who is currently Scott Kestrel. He is winning the Mr. Kestrel Scott is winning this leading, but it is tight standings. Okay, but right now we're handing out a random draw. So every point that you have is every time that you pick correctly, you get a number between you get a point. Okay. So I'm going to put all those names into a hat and draw it out right now. Can I get a drum roll, Nick?
Did you want an actual drum roll?
No, I think whatever you just gave me is fine. The winner is at Ming Dynasty 924. Congratulations. We have some fourth line merch, also some hockey cards to send your way. So send us a DM on the Twitters with your details so that we can send that off to you. And if you think, I want free stuff, we've got free stuff for you. So head on over to our Twitter at Fourth Line Podcast. And for every game, we're going to pick those games in just a second. For every game this week that we pick, you tune in. Tonight's game is the aforementioned Rangers-Panthers game. So hopefully you picked a Ranger that's scored a goal. I know Chris Kreider opened the scoring tonight.
That's the game-winning goal so far.
So far, that's the game-winning goal. So I'm not sure how many Chris Kreider picks we have, but we'll check out at the end of the game. So pick that. And if you are correct, you get a point, and we'll hand those out. So let's take a look at this week's schedule. Mr. Nick, what do you
pull
think?
It up? Let me open the schedule here.
Right. While you do that, I'll get us started for Tuesday night, because the game of the night is the Hurricanes of Carolina versus the Lightning of Tampa Bay.
That's the game. Good, I like it.
I've left you a much shorter schedule with less great games on Wednesday.
So, I'm going to be watching Toronto, Philadelphia.
Okay. I think so. That's a fine choice.
That one.
Right. Philly's had a good year. They're playing well. Toronto's playing well. That's going to be a good game. On Thursday, the 11th, Remembrance Day. Thank you to all those who serve. That seems like literally the worst way to handle that. Like, hey, it's the 11th. Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. I appreciate you more than I made it sound like I do.
That was amazing. Okay. So, sorry, is this Wednesday or Thursday?
Thursday.
The
11th. Remember? I just dropped the ball.
I do remember. Okay, Thursday, the 11th, Remembrance Day here in Canada. Well, what do we got? This is a long schedule.
There's a lot. Some standouts to me here. I'll hit you with some of my favorites. Oilers, Bruins, Panthers, Penguins.
Let's do Oilers, Bruins.
Okay.
So we can watch a McDavid goal.
Okay.
And you guys can all make fun of me about how I said they're going to win 62 games this year.
Okay, we will. Do we go with the basement game of Coyotes Blackhawks on Friday?
Sure.
There's going to be a lot of goals in that game. Who knows? Who knows who's going to score the winner?
Sure. It's going to go to a shootout.
My goodness. All right, Saturday. Some good games on Saturday. Maybe only one good game on Saturday. It was just the first one I noticed.
You're looking at Florida, Tampa?
Florida, Tampa, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we pick that game every time it comes up, but how could you not?
How can you? You have to, right?
Yeah.
All right, which brings us to Sunday. I mean, I think another one that we always pick when it comes up is Penn's Caps.
Yeah.
But I think we probably have to watch the 4-1 Jonathan Bernier against the New York Rangers.
Yeah, absolutely we do, Carl.
I
didn't realize Bernier was 4-1, but thanks for that reminder.
The listeners at this point got to know, right? Look, if the Bernier take from the beginning of the year is any hint, the Oilers are winning at least 62 games this year.
Still too early to be too cocky about it, but I'm putting that one in my back pocket.
Okay, next Monday night, we are recording. There's only 2 games. One of those teams has been picked once this week already. So what do you think?
So you want to do Detroit Columbus?
We're doing Detroit Columbus.
Again, lots of goals scored.
It's not even the worst game we've picked this week, folks.
No, it's not.
We've really just wanted you to be able to pick some different games and to watch all the goals we scored. So there you go. Head on over to our Twitter at Fourth Line Podcast with the number 4. Pick your game-winning goal score for each of those. We'll send out a prize. It's going to be great. Thank you for tuning in this week. We'll be back. If this is your first time tuning in, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to shows. We are there for you. We're here every Monday night. You know, if you're on the East Coast, we'll be waiting for you Tuesday morning when you get home. Please don't get home Tuesday morning. When you wake up Tuesday morning.
There we go.
It's a Monday. There's been a time change this week, Nick. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore.
Dark.
Things are getting dark. That's true. So thank you very much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
And it's time for us to wrap up another Fourth Line show. I know what you're thinking. You don't want us to go. I hope you enjoyed all of my hot takes, but we really need to go so Carl can go and eat his cake.